Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My name is Terrell Jackson, and I have been working construction since the summer I graduated from high school. 8 years of early mornings, heavy materials, and the steady rhythm of hard work. I learned the trade from the ground up, sweeping sawdust off concrete floors before anyone trusted me with a drill. Over time, drywall installation became my specialty. It was good money, honest work. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills and then some. I liked the feeling of leaving a site at the end of the day, knowing I had built something real and solid with my own hands. That Tuesday started like any other. I woke up before sunrise in my small place on the east side of Charlotte, North Carolina, drank coffee from a Scar travel mug, and drove my pickup truck to the job site. We were working on a new office building, converting an old warehouse into something sleek and modern. Clouds were already gathering when I climbed out of the truck, the sky a dull gray that promised trouble later. By noon the wind had picked up, rattling loose plastic and sending dust swirling through the steel skeleton of the building. My foreman, Mr. Bryant, kept checking his phone for weather updates. Finally, around 2 in the afternoon, he blew his whistle and called everyone over. "We are shutting it down," he said. "Severe thunderstorm warning. I am not having anyone up on scaffolding in this wind. Pack it up and head home." I did not argue. My shoulders and hands ached from hanging sheets of drywall all morning. I loaded my tools, tossed my work bag into the truck, and sat for a moment with the engine idling. I took out my phone and sent a quick text to my fiancée. "Latoya, site shut down early. Heading home," I wrote. The message went through. No response. That did not bother me. She worked full-time in underwriting and insurance office. Workdays kept her busy, glued to spreadsheets and risk assessments. The drive home was quiet, raindrops starting to tap against the windshield as I left the industrial district and merged onto the highway. I thought about bills that needed paying, supplies I needed to restock, and the engagement ring I had bought for Latoya 9 months ago. Lately, I had started thinking about that ring in a way that felt uneasy, like holding something beautiful that did not quite belong in my hands. Our apartment complex sat on the edge of a quieter neighborhood, a cluster of brick buildings with tired landscaping and a small playground that always seemed empty. The parking lot was half deserted on a weekday afternoon. I pulled into my usual spot and saw Latoya's black sedan already parked in hers. She must have taken a half day too, I thought. Maybe something at her office had let out early because of the weather. I grabbed my thermos and work bag from the passenger seat and stepped out into the heavy air. The rain had not fully started, but the sky pressed low and dark, the kind of heat that feels like it is waiting to snap. I walked across the lot, my work boots thudding dully against the asphalt. 8 years of moving carefully around construction sites had made me light on my feet in spite of the weight of my boots. It was second nature now, part of who I was. Our apartment was on the second floor. The stairs were carpeted and soft under my boots, muffling my steps. I went up them automatically, thinking about maybe surprising Latoya with an early dinner, maybe ordering takeout from the soul food spot she liked downtown. I reached our door and pulled out my keys, already picturing her sitting on the couch watching something on television. That was when I heard her voice through the door. She was speaking louder than usual, animated in a way she only got when she was talking to her mother, Evelyn. "Mom, you are being ridiculous," Latoya said, her laugh coming through clear as if she was standing right next to me. "Relax. I'm just having fun. There is zero chance I would actually marry someone who puts up drywall for a paycheck. I have standards." The key ring suddenly felt heavy in my hand. I froze with the key halfway to the lock. My first reaction was confusion, like I had misheard something, like maybe she was talking about someone else. But there was no one else in her life who put up drywall for a living. That was me. She continued, her voice carrying that familiar dismissive tone I had heard in small moments before, little comments I never took seriously enough to examine closely. I know, Latoya said. "But he is convenient right now. He splits rent, fixes things around the apartment, and honestly the engagement keeps Dad from trying to set me up with one of his golf buddies. It is just easier this way." She laughed again, light and careless. "Trust me, Mom, this is not forever. I have been looking. There's a guy in corporate at work. Makes 6 figures. We have been talking. Once I have something better lined up, I will figure out an exit strategy." But until then, why rock the boat? My throat tightened. I stepped back from the door without meaning to, like I had been shoved. She paused to listen to whatever her mother said on the other end. Then Latoya answered, "No, he does not suspect anything. He is too busy mixing mud and hanging sheets to notice much of anything. Simple guy, simple needs." Another laugh. "You raised me better than this, right? I am not going to end up a construction worker's wife." The hallway suddenly felt too small and too warm. The carpet beneath my boots felt soft and unstable, as if it might give way. That morning I had gone to the jeweler where I had bought her engagement ring. Something in my gut had been restless for weeks, maybe months. Nights when she fell asleep easily while I stared at the ceiling, wondering why I felt like I was waiting for something to fall apart. At the jewelry store, the man behind the counter, Mr. Collins, had looked at me with sympathetic eyes when I set the ring box down. "Change of heart?" he asked gently. I had shrugged, feeling embarrassed and hollow at the same time. "Something like that," I said. "Just need to return it." He had checked the paperwork, inspected the ring, and explained the policy. "We can offer 80% of your original purchase price," he told me. "I wish I could do more, but that is the best we can do." I nodded. "That is fine." He counted out the numbers, handed me the receipt, and kept his voice soft. "For what it is worth, sometimes letting go early is better than hanging on until it hurts worse." Backslash. That receipt was still in my wallet as I stood in the hallway outside my own door listening to my fiancée talk about me like I was a temporary convenience. I stayed there a moment longer as the conversation drifted away from me to other topics. Latoya and her mother moved on to vacation plans. "I want to go to a resort in Miami Beach," Latoya said, sounding excited. "He will probably suggest camping in some state park or something equally cheap." She laughed. "You know how he is." I stepped back slowly, careful not to let my boots creak against the floor. I moved away from the door and into the stairwell, every step feeling strange, as if I was walking underwater. I sat down on the top step, elbows on my knees, and stared at the wall in front of me. My hands were shaking. I could hear muffled sound from other apartments, a television somewhere, a baby crying in the distance, but everything felt far away. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a text from Damon, my former supervisor from a few years back, and one of the few people in this world I trusted completely. He had left our old company to start his own contracting business the year before. The text read, "Still interested in that partnership discussion? Got a big commercial project lined up. Could use someone I trust." I stared at the message for a long time. The words on the screen seemed sharper than everything else around me. I thought about the conversation I had overheard, the ring I had already returned, the way Latoya's laughter had sounded when she said I was convenient. I thought about how long I had been ignoring that tightness in my chest whenever she brushed off what I did for a living. My fingers moved on their own. I typed, "Yeah, let's talk tomorrow. I'm going to have a lot more free time soon." I hit send and put my phone away. Then I sat back and let the steady hum of the building fill the silence that had opened inside me. For 20 minutes I stayed there on the stairs, not thinking about the details of what I had heard. That part was crystal clear and did not need to be replayed. Instead, I thought about timing, about logistics, about how to end this in a way that protected me. Not a dramatic explosion, not yelling and broken dishes, but something clean and final. Something Latoya could not twist later. When I finally stood, my legs felt steadier. I walked back to the door of our apartment and slid the key into the lock. I had made my decision. I would walk in like nothing had happened. I would let her think everything was fine, and I would start planning my exit, because Latoya was about to learn something important. Simple men with simple needs notice more than people think. I opened the door and stepped into the apartment like it was any other day. Latoya was stretched out on the couch, her phone propped up on the coffee table in front of her, still on a video call with her mother. The television was muted, frozen on a still frame of some reality show she liked. She looked up and smiled that same bright, practiced smile she had been giving me for 2 years. "Hey, baby, you are home early," she said, covering the phone's microphone with her hand. "Yeah." "Site shut down because of the storm," I said, setting my bag down by the door. I nodded toward the screen. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Harris." Her mother's face appeared on the phone, polite and composed. "Hello, Terrell," she said. "Make sure you stay safe in this weather." "We will," I replied. I walked toward the bedroom without another word. Behind me, I heard Latoya end the call quickly. A minute later, she leaned against the bedroom doorway, arms crossed loosely. "You okay?" she asked. "You seem tense." I pulled off my work shirt and tossed it into the hamper. "Long day," I said. "I'm going to grab a shower." She studied me for a second, then shrugged. "Okay, I am ordering dinner later. I might invite Jasmine over. We have some things to talk about." She accepted my explanation easily. That was the thing about Latoya. She never dug too deep. She asked about my day, but only enough to fill silence. I had once thought that meant she respected my space. Now I understood it differently. Over the next few days, I started paying attention in a way I had not before. At dinner Thursday night, I sat across from her at our small table with plates of takeout between us. I talked about a tricky ceiling installation my crew had just finished on the warehouse. It involved recessed lighting and a curved soffit that required more precision than usual. "We had to reframe part of it," I said. "The plans were off by an inch, and if we had followed them exactly, the drywall would have cracked near the seams." Latoya scrolled through her phone while I talked, barely glancing up. "That is nice," she said absently. "I decided to test something. So we ended up using purple giraffes instead of screws," I added. "The inspector loved it." "That sounds good," she murmured, thumbs still moving. I set my fork down and watched her. She did not notice. The only time her eyes left her phone was when a notification sound chimed, and even then it was only for a heartbeat before her attention dropped back to the screen. Friday night, her friend Jasmine came over. I had always liked Jasmine well enough. She was blunt and had a laugh that could shake the walls. While they settled in the living room with a bottle of wine, I stepped into the kitchen to get glasses. As I rinsed them in the sink, I heard Jasmine ask, "So, when is the big day?" Her voice carried easily through the open doorway. "We have not set a date yet," Latoya replied. Her voice dropped, but not enough. "I'm not in a rush." Jasmine snorted. "You have been engaged almost a year, girl." Latoya sighed. "I know. I just want to make sure about everything first. Make sure all my ducks are in a row." "Ducks?" Jasmine asked. "What ducks?" Latoya laughed. "Just making sure I am making the right choice for my future, you know." I walked in with their glasses, the two of them falling silent just a little too fast. "Here you go," I said. Jasmine thanked me, but her eyes flicked between us, reading the air. Saturday morning, Latoya left early to pick up breakfast from a coffee shop she liked. She rushed out the door, complaining that she was running late for a hair appointment. I stayed behind to tidy up the kitchen. On my way past the dining table, I noticed her laptop open, the screen still glowing. Normally I would not have looked. I had never been the snooping type, but something made my eyes catch on the open email window. The subject line was a casual update in a thread with someone named Dominique. My name was right there in the preview line. I moved closer, heart thudding, and read, "He is still useful for now," Latoya had written. "He handles all the manual labor around here, splits the expenses, and it keeps things quiet with my parents. But yes, I am definitely keeping my options open. Kendrick from corporate took me to lunch again yesterday. Now, that is husband material." My chest tightened. Dominique had replied, "Does Kendrick know you are engaged?" Latoya's answer sat beneath it. "No, I do not wear the ring to work anymore. Too many questions. I'm not trying to scare him off before things are official. I need to see how far he can go first." I scrolled down further and saw week after week of similar messages. Latoya talking about positioning herself, about making sure she did not waste her 20s on the wrong man, about trying to time her exit so she did not end up stranded. I heard her keys in the lock. I closed the laptop gently and stepped back, sitting at the table as if I had been there the whole time. The door opened, and Latoya came in with a paper bag and 2 cups of coffee. "They ran out of all the good bagels," she complained. "I had to get plain. Can you believe that?" "Terrible," I said calmly. "The horror." She laughed, kissed my cheek, and started unpacking breakfast, completely unaware that I now knew more about her plans than she could ever imagine. Over the next week, I made calls during my lunch breaks, standing near the back of the site where the noise was lighter. I met Damon twice at a small diner off the highway, the kind of place where the waitress called everyone Han and kept the coffee flowing without asking. Damon had already laid some groundwork for his company, Cameron Construction Solutions. "I have 3 commercial contracts lined up," he told me, sliding a folder across the table. "Office build-outs, a medical clinic expansion, and a retail conversion. I could use someone who knows drywall and has a good head for details. That has always been you, Terrell. We went over numbers, timelines, and projected profits. The partnership he was offering was not a fantasy. It was solid. I would need to invest some capital, but I had savings, more than LaToya knew about. I saw the path forming in front of me, a way out that did not involve drama or scrambling, a way to redirect the life I had been building towards something that actually respected me. I opened a new bank account at a different institution and started transferring money slowly. Not huge sums, nothing that would trigger alarm on our joint account, but steady amounts that added up week by week. I kept cash withdrawals low, and my explanation simple. If LaToya noticed anything at all, she did not ask. She was too busy planning her own future to worry about mine. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a show she barely followed, she turned to me with sudden energy. "I want to throw a party," she announced. I looked at her, surprised. "What kind of party?" "An engagement party," she said, eyes shining. "We never had one. We should do it right. Invite everyone, my family, my friends, some of my coworkers. You can invite your people too if you want. It will be a celebration." She grabbed her phone and started typing before I could respond. 3 weeks from Saturday," she said. "There is a private room at that restaurant downtown. I already checked. They have availability. I will handle everything. The invitations, the menu, the decorations. All you have to do is show up and smile." I studied her. She looked genuinely excited, energized by the idea of showing off our engagement to the world, or maybe by the idea of curating an image. "Sure," I said. "Sounds great." She looked up, startled that I agreed so easily. "You mean it?" "Yeah," I replied. "Absolutely. Let us celebrate." She grinned, leaned over to kiss me, and went back to her phone, sending message after message. I picked up my own phone under the guise of checking social media and texted Damon. "Partnership accepted. Let us move forward." His reply came fast. "About time. Welcome aboard, partner." 3 weeks. That was the timeline. LaToya thought she was planning the moment to present our future to everyone we knew. She had no idea she was organizing the stage for our ending. The partnership paperwork took 4 days to finalize. Damon and I met with a lawyer he trusted, a steady man with a calm voice who went line by line through the contract. We sat in a small office that smelled faintly of coffee and old books while he explained our roles, responsibilities, and profit splits. I put down $20,000 as my buy-in, half of my savings. It felt like placing a bet on myself. Damon slid a printed logo across the table. "Cameron Construction Solutions," he said. The design was clean, bold lettering with a simple geometric icon. "Has a nice ring to it, right?" I nodded. "Better than I expected." We shook hands when everything was signed. "We have 3 jobs lined up to start," Damon said. "We will be busy straight out of the gate." That same afternoon, I drove to my current company's office and handed Mr. Bryant my 2 weeks' notice. We stood in the cramped trailer that served as the site office, blueprints pinned to the walls and coffee rings staining nearly every surface. He read the letter and nodded slowly. "Opportunity knocks," he said, clapping a calloused hand on my shoulder. "You always had more in you than just punching a clock. Go build something of your own." At home, LaToya was deep into party planning mode. She ordered floral centerpieces, rented white tablecloths, and hired a caterer specializing in small plates and champagne. She booked a photographer to take candid engagement shots. I watched her charge everything to the credit card we shared. "This is going to be perfect," she kept saying. "Everyone is going to be so happy for us." I smiled and nodded at the right moments, keeping my thoughts to myself. The lease for the apartment was in LaToya's name. She had signed it before I moved in 2 years earlier. On paper, I was just an additional occupant. That meant that when the time came, I could walk away without legal entanglements. No dividing property, no long arguments over who owned what. The only thing I needed to do was move my belongings out without raising suspicion. So I did. Slowly. 1 box at a time. A bag here, a plastic tub there. Old college textbooks went first, then off-season clothes, then tools I did not use daily. I stacked them carefully in the back office of Damon's workshop. He watched me carry in another box of framed family photos and asked, "You are really doing this, huh?" "I should have done it months ago," I said, setting the box down. Most guys would have confronted her right away, he said, right after they heard that phone call or saw those emails. I shrugged. Most guys do not think past the anger. I want this clean. I do not want her telling a different version of events later. I want one moment where everything is out in the open and no one can say they did not know who she really was. LaToya's parents checked in regularly as the party approached. One evening, her mother called while we were eating dinner, and LaToya put the call on speaker. "How are the preparations going?" Mrs. Harris asked, her voice smooth. "Wonderful," LaToya said. "Everything is coming together beautifully. We are so excited." She glanced at me with an almost nervous smile, like she wanted me to confirm it. "And you, Terrell?" Mrs. Harris asked. "Are you looking forward to it?" I took a sip of water, set the glass down carefully, and said, "Absolutely. I would not miss it for anything." There was a small pause on the other end of the line. "Marriage is such an important commitment," Mrs. Harris said. "I'm glad LaToya found someone so stable." The hesitation before stable was deliberate. I heard it. LaToya heard it too. Nobody commented. When the call ended, LaToya sighed and rolled her eyes. "My mother can be too much sometimes," she said. "She cares," I replied politely. "She seems nice." LaToya gave a short laugh and changed the subject. 2 days before the party, one of LaToya's coworkers stopped by. Taryn worked in a different department at the insurance firm and had always been friendly in the brief moments we had met. That afternoon, I came home early and went to our bedroom to change before going to Damon's workshop. They did not realize I was there. As I sorted through a drawer, I heard Taryn's voice filter down the hall. "So, Kendrick is coming Saturday?" Taryn asked. "Yes," LaToya said. I could hear the rustle of fabric as she fussed with decorations piled on the coffee table. I seated him far from my parents, though. I did not need awkward questions. Taryn lowered her voice. "LaToya, you are engaged. Kendrick knows that now, right?" LaToya hesitated. "He knows I am in a situation," she said finally. "I haven't honest about that much." "A situation?" Taryn replied. "That is a whole person in there, not a situation." LaToya's voice dropped, but I could still hear her clearly. I moved closer to the door, carefully staying out of sight. "It is complicated," she said. "Look, I care about him, okay? But Kendrick is going places. Real places. Corporate ladder, investments, the whole package. She paused long enough that I could picture her gesturing toward the apartment, "is comfortable. That is different from forever." Taryn did not respond right away. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded tired. "Does he suspect anything?" she asked. "No," LaToya said. "He is too focused on his new business thing with his friend. He barely notices what I am doing anymore." I stepped back from the bedroom door, pulled out my phone, and texted Damon, "Saturday is going to be interesting." His reply came a minute later. "Need backup." I stared at the words, then wrote, "No. I have this." There was a brief pause, then another text appeared. "You know where to find me if you change your mind." The night before the party, LaToya wanted to go over the timeline in meticulous detail. We sat at the kitchen table surrounded by printed seating charts, color samples, and paper lists. "Guests arrive at 6, she said, tapping a line on her list. "We will do drinks and appetizers until 6:45. Then my father will give a toast, then maybe Jasmine. After that, you can say something. Keep it short, you know? Sweet and simple." She smiled as if I were a child she was gently reminding not to talk too long in front of adults. "I can definitely keep it simple," I said. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You are a good man, Terrell," she said. "I know I do not always say it, but I appreciate you." There was a time when that would have filled me with warmth. Now the words landed flat, like she was rehearsing lines for a performance. I squeezed back lightly and said, "I appreciate you too." It was technically true. I appreciated that she had spelled everything out so clearly that there was no room left for doubt. Saturday morning arrived hot and bright, the storm from earlier in the week a distant memory. LaToya was up before dawn, pacing the apartment with nervous energy, checking her phone constantly. She had booked a private room in an upscale restaurant in downtown Charlotte, the kind of place with dim lighting, tall glass windows, and a menu that did not bother to list prices. It probably cost more than I used to make in a week at my old job. Fortunately, she had put everything on the card. I took my time getting ready. I chose dark jeans without fraying, a clean button-down shirt, and boots I had polished the night before. My clothes were not fancy, but they were neat and reflected who I was. LaToya emerged from the bathroom in a fitted cocktail dress the color of deep red wine, her hair curled and pinned just so, makeup flawless. She looked beautiful. Whatever else she was, that much had always been true. "You look incredible," I told her. She smiled, turning in front of the mirror to examine her reflection from every angle. "Thank you, baby," she said. "This night is going to be amazing. Everybody is going to be so happy for us." "I'm sure they will be," I replied. She wanted to leave early to oversee the setup, so we agreed to drive separately. "You are not going to be late, right?" she asked, hand on the doorknob. "I will be there," I told her. "Promise." She nodded, satisfied, and left in a flutter of excitement. Once she was gone, I did not drive straight to the restaurant. Instead, I headed to Damon's workshop one more time. The back office smelled like sawdust and coffee. My boxes were stacked neatly against the wall. Clothes, tools, documents, framed photos of my parents and my younger cousins. Everything important to me was already out of the apartment. "You sure you are ready for this?" Damon asked, leaning against a workbench. I looked around at the boxes, then back at him. "I've been ready for 3 weeks," I said. "Maybe longer." He nodded, crossing his arms. "You want me there?" he asked. "In case anything goes sideways." I shook my head. "No, this is something I need to do alone. If you came, it would turn into something else. This is between me and her." Damon studied my face for a moment, then clapped my shoulder. "Call me after," he said. "We will get a drink. However it goes, you are not going home to that apartment again. You hear me?" "I hear you," I said. I left the workshop and drove to the restaurant. For a moment, I sat in the parking lot with the engine off, watching well-dressed guests filter through the front doors. I could see women in bright dresses, men in button-down shirts and jackets, hands carrying wrapped gifts and cards with our names written in looping script. I took a deep breath, let it out, and stepped out of the truck. Time to end this properly. The private room was decorated exactly the way LaToya had described. White tablecloths draped the tables, small arrangements of fresh flowers sat in the center of each one, and string lights hung along the walls. A banner stretched across one side that read, "Congratulations, LaToya and Terrell," with her name in large, swirling letters and mine in smaller print beneath it. About 40 people mingled with drinks in hand, talking and laughing. LaToya spotted me almost immediately. Her practiced smile was in full effect as she hurried over, her heels clicking against the polished floor. "There you are," she said, slipping her arm through mine. "Come on, people want to congratulate us." She pulled me into the flow of guests, introducing me to coworkers I had heard about but never seen, college friends with old stories, and family I had met once or twice at holidays. Everyone seemed genuinely happy. There were hugs, handshakes, and congratulations. Nobody knew what I knew. Nobody could see the invisible line between LaToya's public performance and the private words she had said when she thought I could not hear. Kendrick arrived a little late, wearing a tailored navy suit and an expensive watch that flashed under the lights. He moved through the room with the easy confidence of someone used to being noticed. LaToya's eyes lit up when she saw him, though she tried to hide it. She introduced us. "Terrell, this is Kendrick, one of my colleagues from the corporate side." Kendrick extended his hand, his smile polite but amused. "Congratulations, man," he said. "LaToya talks about you all the time." "I bet she does," I replied, shaking his hand firmly. His eyes flickered, curious, but he said nothing more. LaToya quickly steered him toward a table on the far side of the room, just as she had planned, but I saw the way she stood a little straighter when he looked at her. The evening moved forward in a blur of small talk and clinking glasses. Servers moved through the crowd with trays of appetizers and champagne. At one point, my cousin Alicia, who I had invited mostly, so I would have at least one person there fully in my corner, touched my arm. "You doing okay?" she asked quietly. She had always been good at reading me. "I am fine," I said, just taking it all in. She held my gaze for another moment, then nodded. "I'm here if you need me," she said. Eventually, LaToya's father, Mr. Harris, tapped his glass with a fork. The room quieted. He stood near the center, his posture straight, holding his champagne flute with an air of authority. "First of all," he began, "thank you all for coming to celebrate my daughter and her fiancé." He smiled at LaToya with affection and pride. "I have watched my daughter grow into a determined, ambitious woman. I will admit, I have always been protective of her. Like any father, I wanted someone worthy to stand beside her. He turned his gaze to me. It was not hostile, but it was measuring. Terrell, he said, you seem like a steady man. You work hard. You show up. That matters more than most people realize. I hope the two of you build something strong together. The guests raised their glasses when he finished. To the happy couple, he said. To the happy couple. Everyone echoed. I raised my glass too and took a small sip. Jasmine spoke next. She told a story about meeting LaToya in college, about how LaToya had marched into their freshman economics class with a binder full of color-coded tabs. She has always known what she wanted, Jasmine said, smiling toward her friend. Ambition has been her middle name since day one, and now she has found someone who is not afraid of that, someone who keeps up and supports her dreams. That is rare. She gestured toward me. So here is to LaToya and Terrell, to big dreams and solid partnerships. More cheers, more raised glasses. Then Mrs. Harris rose to speak. She moved with careful precision, her dress immaculate, her hair perfectly styled. My daughter has always had very clear standards, she said. The word standards hung in the air like a weight. She knows her worth. She knows what she deserves. And I trust her judgment completely. She raised her glass, but she looked only at LaToya, not at me. People murmured politely and drank. The room felt slightly warmer, the air thicker. LaToya squeezed my hand under the table. Your turn, she whispered, her eyes bright, expectant. I stood slowly, feeling every gaze turn toward me. 40 faces watched, some smiling, some curious, a few already a little tipsy and relaxed. LaToya's expression held excitement and confidence. Kendrick lounged in his chair, smirking into his drink. Mrs. Harris's face was calm, unreadable. Thank you all for coming, I began. LaToya put a lot of work into this party. A lot of planning. She's good at planning. A few guests chuckled politely. I'm just a simple guy, I continued. I hang drywall for a living. I put up walls, tape joints, and smooth seams. It is honest work. Nothing glamorous. I paused and let my gaze move across the room. Some people might say it is beneath them, below their standards. LaToya's smile faltered. Only slightly, but I saw it. A few people shifted in their chairs, sensing something in my tone that did not quite match the expected script. Here's what I have learned doing this work, I said. Walls are funny things. They hide a lot. You can paint them and decorate them, make them look perfect on the outside. But if the foundation is weak, if there's rot behind the surface, eventually everything crumbles. Sooner or later, what is hidden comes out. The room went very quiet. I heard the faint hum of the restaurant outside our private room, plates clinking, distant laughter from strangers. In our space, there was nothing but silence and the sound of my own breathing. 3 weeks ago, I said, I came home early because a storm shut down the job site. I walked up to our apartment door and heard LaToya on the phone with her mother. I looked directly at Mrs. Harris. She was laughing. She said there was zero chance she would actually marry someone who puts up drywall for a living. She said she had standards. LaToya's face drained of color. A chair creaked somewhere behind me. She told her mother I was convenient. I continued. Useful for splitting rent and fixing things. She said she was waiting for something better to come along. Waiting for a man in corporate. Someone who made 6 figures. I turned my gaze toward Kendrick. Someone like a certain colleague from her office. Maybe. Kendrick's expression hardened. He set his glass down a little too quickly. Murmurs spread through the crowd like a ripple. Guests glancing at one another. At LaToya. At me. LaToya, I said, you were right about one thing. You do have standards. And honestly, so do I. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the folded receipt from the jewelry store. This is from the jeweler, I said, holding it up. I got 80% back when I returned your engagement ring the same day I heard that conversation. That was 3 weeks ago. LaToya's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her eyes blinked rapidly, hands trembling against the tablecloth. So here's the truth, I said. This engagement has been over for 3 weeks. You just did not know it yet. I looked around the room at the guests who had come to celebrate us. I'm sorry you all came out under false pretenses. But at least now everyone gets to see the reality, not the performance. You are lying, LaToya said suddenly, her voice sharp and desperate. You are twisting things because you're insecure. You misunderstood everything. Did I? I asked calmly. I pulled my phone from my pocket and held it where she could see. I have been documenting things, I said. Your laptop conversations with Dominique. The emails about Kendrick. The messages where you call me a situation and talked about your exit strategy. I have it all saved. In truth, I had not recorded or saved anything beyond what I'd seen and memorized, but I knew her well enough to see whether fear crossed her face. Fear did. LaToya's eyes darted toward her parents, then to Kendrick, then to Jasmine and Taryn. Mr. Harris stood abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. LaToya, he said, his voice low but carrying. Is this true? She swallowed hard. I can explain, she stammered. You are making it sound worse than it is. I was just venting. You know how I get when I am stressed. There is no need to explain, I said. Everyone here just heard enough to understand. You do not have to take my word for it. I looked at Mr. Harris. But if you want proof, I can provide it. He held my gaze for a long moment, then looked at his daughter. The shame and anger that crossed his face were impossible to miss. Sit down, LaToya, he said quietly. She sank in her chair. I set my untouched drink on the table. By the way, I added, I already moved my things out of the apartment. The lease is in your name, so congratulations. It is all yours. Good luck covering the rent alone. Gasps rippled through the room. LaToya's eyes widened. Where are you going? She asked, her voice cracking. I turned toward the door, then looked back one last time. I'm going to build something, I said. Something with a solid foundation. Something genuine. Something you would not understand. I glanced at her mother. Mrs. Harris, thank you for teaching your daughter about standards. You helped me raise mine. Then I walked toward the door. Behind me, the room erupted into chaos. Voices overlapped. LaToya crying, Mr. Harris speaking sharply, Mrs. Harris demanding answers, Jasmine murmuring to Taryn, guests whispering to one another. I stepped out into the main dining area of the restaurant, where strangers were eating dinner and laughing, unaware that a quiet bomb had just exploded in the private room down the hall. My phone buzzed as I reached the parking lot. It was Damon. How did it go? His text read. I typed back one word. Perfectly. Then I added, meet you at our spot in 20 minutes. First round is on me. I got into my truck, started the engine, and drove away without looking back at the restaurant or thinking about the mess I'd left behind. I felt strangely calm. Not happy, exactly, but clean. The call started within an hour. My phone lit up again and again with LaToya's name. I watched it ring the first few times, the screen vibrating on the table in front of me at the bar where Damon and I sat. I did not answer. 17 missed calls later, I blocked her number. Text messages poured in for a while before that. The preview showed the first few words. Terrell, please, you do not have to. I am so sorry. I deleted each one without opening it fully. Damon took a long sip of his beer and shook his head. You actually did it, he said, a hint of admiration in his voice. You stood up in front of everybody and dropped the whole truth in their laps. It needed to be done, I replied. Most guys would have screamed, thrown things, maybe punched a wall, Damon said. They would have given her something to point at for the rest of her life and say, look how crazy he got. I had to leave him. I nodded. That is exactly what I did not want. This way, she does not get to spin it. Everyone saw who she really was. My phone buzzed again, this time with an unknown number. I let go to voicemail. Later, curious, I listened to one. Melanie-level dramatics were not LaToya's style, but whoever it was sounded anxious. Over the next few days, the story of what happened at the party spread quickly through LaToya's social circle. Mutual acquaintances reached out, their messages pretending concern, but laced with curiosity. Is it true what happened at the engagement party? One asked. Did you really call her out in front of everyone? I answered only once. Every word is true. Kendrick, I heard through the grapevine, stopped returning LaToya's calls and emails immediately after the party. Nobody at the office wanted to be pulled into that drama. Some of her friends tried to defend her, saying she had just been overwhelmed or misunderstood. Most quietly put distance between themselves and the storm she had stirred up. People liked ambition. They did not like calculated cruelty when it was exposed. One evening, my phone rang with a familiar number. It was Mr. Harris. I hesitated for a second, then answered. Terrell, he said, his voice measured. I need to know if what you said at the party was accurate. Every detail. Every single detail, I replied. I can provide what I saw and read if you need documentation. There was a long silence on the other end. Finally, he said, "That will not be necessary. I believe you." His voice sounded older than it had at the party. "I am sorry," he added. "I thought I raised her better than this." "It is not your fault, sir," I said. "People make their own choices. For what it is worth, I respect how you handled yourself." He exhaled slowly. "For what it is worth, you handled this with more dignity than most men would have," he said. "I hope you build something good with that company of yours." "I intend to," I replied. We ended the call. I never heard from him again. The apartment situation took care of itself. From what I later learned, LaToya could not afford the rent on her salary alone, not with the credit card debt from the party on top of everything else. She tried to scramble for a roommate, but the timing and the circumstances were against her. Within 2 weeks, she had broken the lease and moved back in with her parents on the other side of town. Meanwhile, Cameron Construction Solutions hit the ground running. Damon and I threw ourselves into the work. Our first commercial project, an office renovation, finished ahead of schedule and under budget. The client was impressed enough to recommend us to 2 other businesses. Word spread quickly. Contractors talk, property managers talk, and soon our phones were ringing more often than they were silent. "You are a natural at this," Damon said one afternoon as we reviewed quarterly projections at the small desk in the workshop office. "You always did more than just hang drywall. Now you're overseeing crews, estimating jobs, negotiating with vendors. Better than just being another guy on the crew, right?" I smiled. "I'm still hanging drywall," I pointed out. "The difference is, I own the company that is doing it now." Damon laughed. "Fair enough." With the money from my share of the contracts, I found a small house to rent on the opposite side of Charlotte. It sat on a quiet street with tall trees and a porch that faced the setting sun. The landlord, Mr. Robinson, was an older man who seemed pleasantly surprised when I offered to handle minor repairs myself. "You know what you're doing with tools?" he asked. "Yes, sir," I said. "It is my profession." Over the next few months, I spent weekends fixing loose railings, repainting the living room, and replacing an old light fixture in the kitchen. Mr. Robinson appreciated the improvements so much he knocked a bit off my rent. Life settled into a rhythm. I worked long days at job sites, spent some evenings at the gym, and met Damon and the crew for drinks occasionally. The silence in my new house felt different from the silence that had hung in the old apartment after LaToya went to sleep. It felt peaceful instead of tense. There were no half-hidden plans lurking beneath the surface, no conversations I might overhear that would rearrange my entire understanding of my life. About 2 months after the disastrous party, Taryn reached out again. I saw her name on my phone and debated letting it go to voicemail, but curiosity won. "Hey, Terrell," she said when I answered. "Do you have a minute?" "Sure," I replied carefully. "What is going on?" She hesitated. "LaToya has been asking about you," she said. "She wants to know if you're seeing anyone. She's been pretty miserable, honestly. Work has been rough. She got passed over for a promotion. Living with her parents is not going well. She asked if I could see whether you would be willing to talk." I leaned against the kitchen counter and looked out the window at the tree in the yard. "Why?" I asked. "What is there to talk about?" "She says she realizes what she lost," Taryn said. "She says she was stupid and shallow. She says she has changed." I thought about the emails, the phone calls, the way she had smiled at Kendrick from across the room while holding my hand. "People do not change in 2 months," I said. "They just get better at hiding who they really are." "She is really hurting," Taryn said softly. "I believe that," I replied. "But her pain is not my responsibility. She showed me exactly who she was when she thought I was not listening. I believe her version, not the one she is trying to sell now. There is nothing she could say that I want to hear." There was a pause on the line. "I understand," Taryn said finally. "I'm sorry about everything that happened." "You did not do anything wrong," I told her. "Take care of yourself, Taryn." After we hung up, I blocked her number 2, not out of anger, but out of practicality. That chapter was closed. I intended to keep it that way. 3 months later, I met someone in the hardware aisle of a big box store, of all places. I was there to pick up supplies for a residential project, pushing a flat cart loaded with joint compound and fasteners. A woman stood a few feet away, frowning at 2 different sizes of lumber and measuring tape in her hand. She wore jeans and a simple blouse, her hair pulled back, no visible attempt at impressing anyone. "Excuse me," she said when she noticed me. Do you mind helping me with something? I think I am confusing myself. I stepped closer. Sure, I said. What are you working on? A home renovation, she said. Well, more like a home rescue. The previous owner apparently had a strong opinion about do-it-yourself projects and no idea what he was doing. I'm trying to frame in a small wall to create a mudroom, but I'm not sure which boards I should be using. I glanced at the measurements on her notepad and then at the boards. You want these, I said, pointing to the proper ones. 2x4s. You want to check for straightness. Some of these bow a little. I showed her how to side down each board and reject the warped ones. She watched carefully, curiosity bright in her eyes. You know your stuff, she said. Construction background. Yes, I replied. It is what I do professionally. My partner and I own Cameron Construction Solutions. We focus on commercial work mostly, but I still handle enough residential projects to stay dangerous. Her eyebrows rose. That is impressive, she said. Starting your own company is no small thing. There was no condescension in her voice, no assumption that construction work was a fallback or a temporary situation. Just genuine respect. I am Maya, she added, holding out her hand. Project manager for a local architecture firm. Nice to meet you, Maya, I said. I am Terrell. We ended up talking for 20 minutes in that aisle about renovation projects, building codes, the frustrations of city inspections, and the odd satisfaction of seeing a space transform. She asked thoughtful questions about my work and listened to the answers. When we parted, she asked, Do you have a card? My firm sometimes needs contractors who can actually read plans and show up on time. I handed her one. Call anytime, I said. 2 days later, she did. My firm might have some projects that could use your expertise, Maya said over the phone. Would you be open to meeting for coffee to talk about it? Sure, I replied, feeling a flicker of something that was not strictly business. When works for you? Coffee turned into lunch, and the conversation drifted from bidding and scheduling into music, family, and the city we both called home. She was smart, direct, and unpretentious. She laughed easily and did not seem interested in playing games. When she learned what I did day to day, managing crews, climbing ladders, handling materials, and solving problems on site, her reaction was simple. That is real work, Maya said. You must sleep well at night. I smiled. Most of the time, I said. Not once did she imply that my profession was something to tolerate until something better came along. She never treated it like a temporary stepping stone she was hoping I would abandon. We started seeing each other casually. Some dinners, a few weekends spent walking around parks on the edge of Charlotte or wandering through neighborhoods looking at old houses. We talked about everything from our favorite foods to the frustrations of managing expectations at work. She met Damon and the crew at a casual cookout behind the workshop one Saturday, and she fit in immediately, asking questions about their projects and laughing at their stories. One evening, as we sat on my front porch with coffee, the sun sinking behind the trees, she looked over at me and said, Your company is impressive. You know that? I shrugged. We are getting there, I said. You are already there, she replied. You just do not brag about it. That might be my favorite thing about you. With Maya, I never felt the need to apologize for what I did or minimize it. I did not have to pretend I wanted to be someone else to be worth her time. About 6 months after the engagement party that never truly was, Maya invited me to a networking event her firm was hosting downtown. The guest list included commercial builders, architects, engineers, and city officials. It was the kind of professional gathering where everyone wore name tags and carried a drink while pretending they were not keeping track of who spoke to whom. I went as a representative of Cameron Construction Solutions, wearing a simple suit and tie. I shook hands, exchanged business cards, and talked about schedules and budget constraints. It felt good to be there as a peer, not as someone's plus one. At one point, Maya excused herself to talk to a colleague, and I turned to greet a property manager I had worked with in the past. That was when I saw her. LaToya stood near the bar, holding a glass of wine, scanning the room. She wore a fitted dress and heels, her hair styled carefully, but there was something different about her. She looked thinner, tired, and a little strained, as if life had been gnawing at the edges of her confidence. When her eyes landed on me, her expression shifted, from surprise to hope to calculation in the span of a few seconds. I turned back to the property manager and finished my conversation about an upcoming renovation. I handed him my card, confirm a time to follow up, and only then gave Latoya my full attention as she approached. "Hey," she said quietly. "I did not expect to see you here. Networking event for construction and architecture professionals," I replied evenly. "My company does commercial work. It makes sense for me to be here." Her eyes dropped to my badge. "Cameron Construction Solutions," she read. "So that is really happening." "It has been happening for 6 months," I said. "It is going well." There was an awkward silence. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other, gripping her glass a little too tightly. "You look good," she said finally. "You seem different." "Thank you," I replied. "I have been working, staying busy." She took a breath. "I have been meaning to reach out," Latoya said. "I owe you an apology." "You do not owe me anything," I replied. "We're done. We have been done for a while now." "I made a mistake," she said urgently. "I see that now. I was stupid. I was shallow. I took you for granted, and I hurt you. I have been thinking about that night at the restaurant every day." The words sounded rehearsed, like she had practiced them in front of a mirror. Desperation colored her voice. "I have changed," she said. "Really. Living back at home, getting passed over at work, having people look at me differently, it made me realize what I had. You were always steady. You were good to me. I did not appreciate that, and I am so sorry." I watched her closely. There was genuine regret in her eyes, but there was something else too, the same calculating awareness of status and image I'd seen before. "You realized you had someone convenient who made your life easier," I said calmly. "That is not the same as valuing someone." "That is not fair," she protested. "I cared about you. You cared about what I provided," I said. "There is a difference." I kept my voice level, not wanting to make a scene in the middle of a professional event. "You told your mother you would never marry someone who hangs drywall for a living, that you had standards. Those were your real thoughts, the ones you did not expect me to hear." She flinched, her hand tightening around the stem of her glass. "I was just venting," she said. "I did not mean it the way it sounded." "You meant every word," I replied. "And you were right about yourself. You do have standards. I just finally decided to have mine too. They have gone up considerably in the last 6 months." "You do not meet them anymore. So that is it?" she asked. "You will not even consider talking? Not even to hear me out?" "There is nothing to talk about," I said. "You show me who you are when you thought I was not watching. I believe that version. People can grow, maybe, but I'm not going to pause my life to find out whether you will. I have moved on. I have built something real. I have found someone who values me for who I am, not for what I can provide or how much I might someday earn." Her face crumpled. "You are seeing someone," she said. "That is not your concern anymore," I replied. At that moment, Maya stepped up beside me, her hand coming to rest lightly on my arm. "Hey," she said, "ready to head out? We have that early meeting tomorrow, and I promised myself I would not stay too late." "Yeah," I said, grateful for her timing. "Let us go." I turned back to Latoya one last time. "Take care of yourself," I said. "I mean that. But please do it somewhere far away from me." Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. She opened her mouth as if to speak again, but no words came. Maya and I walked away together, leaving Latoya standing alone near the bar, surrounded by people, and yet suddenly very isolated. Maya did not ask any questions until we reached the parking lot. The night air was cool against my skin. "Ex-girlfriend?" she asked quietly. "Ex-fiancée," I said. "Long story. Do you want to tell it?" she asked. I shook my head. "Not particularly," I said. "It is completely finished. That is all that matters." She considered that for a second, then nodded. "Fair enough," she said. She did not push. We drove separately, but she followed me back to my house. We sat on the porch again with coffee, talking about the evening's conversations, the leads we had made, and the hospital renovation project Cameron Construction Solutions had just won the bid for. It was the biggest contract we had landed yet, a sign that our company was stepping into another level. Later that night, after Maya went home and the house was quiet, I lay in bed and thought about that moment 6 months earlier, standing in the hallway outside my own apartment door, keys in hand, listening to Latoya dismantle my worth piece by piece. That moment could have broken me. It could have left me bitter and angry, stuck in resentment, telling anyone who would listen how unfair life had been. Instead, it had done something else. It had stripped away the illusion I had been holding on to and shown me the truth without any soft edges. I had taken that truth and used it as a starting point instead of an ending. I had built a business with a trusted partner, moved into a home that felt peaceful, and drawn clear lines around what I would and would not accept from the people I let close to me. LaToya had spent 6 months regretting her choices, replaying a night in a restaurant where everything she thought she was controlling slipped out of her hands. I had spent those same 6 months proving to myself that I was right to walk away. That is not revenge. That is just living well. And I fully intended to keep doing exactly that. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.